Yeah, I can look back as a retrospective now and kind of and break it down. In the moment, being 14 years old at this time, I had no idea what it was. It was like, all right, like my parents said I need surgery, and just go in and deal with the stuff. And what I didn't realize at that moment was how big of an impact on my social aspect of what sports did for me. I liked sports. I didn't realize that all of my friends at that time were in sports. So now I was out of it for a couple years. They all kept moving on. They kept doing sports. And it was right at that time of like going into high school. You're kind of, having, talk about identity and stuff. Yeah, 15 years old. You have no idea who the hell you are at that time. Nobody, I'm 38 now. I'm still trying to figure it out from there, exactly. But, what it did do is, and kind of looking back, you can look at the positives that came from that. It was a negative, piece in many ways, with it. Yeah, like I wish sometimes that didn't happen, but it also kind of made me dive into a lot more of like the deeper thinking type stuff. Like I'm a deep thinker. I ask, way more questions than probably needed with anything. Like it just goes through my head. And that's actually served me very well in the work that I do in relationships and stuff, because I don't scratch the surface on stuff. I go deep. I got really deep into reading, into writing. I mean, all that type of stuff that has been a huge impact. So it's, if we want, like, kind of going into that like quick fix, like we want to get that result right away. I actually talked with Brooks Kubik on my podcast yesterday on this, as we're recording. And we said nowadays, like with technology, with innovation, everything we want is quick. We were talking about, just got like a new laptop and it was 10 days ago and I still haven't figured it out. And I'm like, well, if you put that into an analogy of a strength training program, if you just started strength training and in 10 days, you're like, I haven't figured this out yet. Like I just started back squatting. I haven't figured out this movement yet. It's like, yeah, well, it's probably going to take you about 10 years to really master this movement down there. So eliminate those expectations, back off. So, one of the things that Brian Grasso says in our mastermind, that we're in is, get your dopamine release from the process, not from the results. And that was something that really hit me. And, why I think systems like that Pavel's work with Paul's done with his work with the Amazing 12. Paul's an unbelievable coach. I've got a chance to speak with him a couple times. And it's really those, and, Brooks, same thing. It's really adopting that mindset of not just enjoying the process, because that's something that like we all say, like everybody know, oh yeah, the long term and stuff like that. But really in their minds, they're like, well, I still want it tomorrow. It's like, no, really enjoying the process of mastering a skill, of diving into it. And I think the best way to do that is to really eliminate those expectations. If you eliminate, that's actually part of the Tao, to go on the spiritual front of it. When you're void of expectations and achievement, then you always succeed. That's what it says in that lesson.
It's funny. It's funny because that's in the Tao, but there's also, what's his name? Schultz, not Schultz. Anyway, there's a YouTube thing about a guy with that, and about how the paradox of choice and the key to a happy life is low expectations.
It is. And I think that gets misconstrued with not working hard. It's like, oh, you can take the day off and stuff. It's like, no, you work as hard as you can in something that you love, but just, David Whitley, the Iron Tamer. I don't know if you guys ever talked to him, but he's an amazing guy. And his message of kind of affirmations that he talked about was like, if you order a book today on Amazon, right, and it says, oh, your book will be delivered on Friday at XYZ. Well, in your mind, you already own that book. It's actually, you don't even have it with you though, but like, that's my book. It's on its way already. You don't know the exact time that it's coming, but in your mind, you feel like you already own it. And he says, that's the same thing when this is the goal that I have. Like, you already own it. You're already going to get there. You don't know when it's going to happen. So relax. Don't worry about it. Like, it's already coming. It's going to be there eventually.
That's amazing. Now, the thing about the low expectations thing, or having no expectations, people think, well, how can you live like that? That's quite, they might think it's a bit, what's the word? A bit, well, you've got to be excited about things. It's like, yeah, but like you've just said, the very example there of the book, it's going to be delivered on Friday. If it turns up on Saturday, you're going to be all day Friday. You're going to be like, where is it? Where is it? And then you're not going to be very happy with the service. Because that expectation has been put there. If they say, "Oh, it'll be there when it gets there,"
Yeah.
you've got no expectation, and it just turns up when it does. So this is when, I mean, I've just written all this down about like the dopamine thing you're talking about. So someone sets a goal, and say it's like a 6-week challenge or something like that, and they do the challenge, they get the thing, bang, dopamine, way, aren't I brilliant? But then that disappears like instantly. And then it's like, well, what happens next? And you kind of might fall off the wagon, and it doesn't sit and it doesn't change your lifestyle, does it? But if you can make the process that, then the dopamine comes from the process, so you're more likely to carry on afterwards, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
We've got quite a unique position though. It's quite a modern thing though, isn't it? All this. It's quite a modern. It's a modern problem to deal with, I think. I mean, it's not to say that people throughout history haven't dealt with existential crisis or the meaning of life and things like that, but it's one of the benefits of the Industrial Revolution was leisure. With leisure, and we work in the leisure industry, don't we? I mean, that's what fitness is. It's kind of, that's why we call it leisure centers. I mean, and that leaves that space for you to go, right, well, shouldn't I be doing something with this? Shouldn't my life mean more than this? In a way, we were kind of creatures of the process in the past. The process kind of was the life. And then we're kind of a bit meta now. We're kind of outside that. We're saying, oh, we have this separate process, which is jobs, family, et cetera, and then we're outside that. We have to have some kind of secondary perspective on what that might look like, and then we end up in this existential crisis. We're like, well, how do I apply meaning to this? How do I navigate this? And really, we've got a luxury of that, and it's kind of a thing that maybe in the past, like when you're talking to Brooks, dealing with people where that the knowledge they had was the knowledge that was available. And therefore, they had to be very good at applying very basic systems and very limited knowledge base. Like when you look at like the light dumbbell system that was used, which is just a single dumbbell to get strong. No one had gyms, no one had that. It's like you've interviewed David Cohen. People who picked up rocks. There was a simplicity to it. And I think that's what's interesting about running a podcast now. And I'm sure you find this with everyone's stories, is that we're actually, you talk about being a deep thinker, a consequence of this extra leisure time is that we've all been given the opportunity to think deeply about that. And therefore, there are people like yourself and, running podcasts who are kind of interested in exploring this narrative of deep thinkers, this kind of seam throughout society, isn't it? I mean, so, I mean, having grown and done over 100 episodes in 6 months, I mean, you must be just I mean, what is it how are you finding your guests? What are you looking for?
That's a really great question. Honestly, I look at having a guest on is just somebody that I think I could have an interesting conversation with. I named it, to start with, this is my second podcast that I've done. My first one that I did was with my old partner, Chris Abbott, who was a Strong First instructor as well. And he had a studio here in where I live in New York State. Okay. The big area above Manhattan. And I joined him about like 4 years ago or so at his studio, and we built that up, and it was amazing. And then we started the podcast and we called it Breakthrough Secrets. We called it that because we wanted to talk about anything. We talked about strength training. We had a lot of our friends on. We had our coaches and mentors on just to have conversations. But then we talked to sex therapists. We've talked to holistic health. I mean, we went all different areas of it, and we were doing a podcast a day, where we were doing 5 episodes a week. We put out 170 episodes in less than 6 months. And then we realized like we couldn't keep up that pace of it. It was a blast. It's so much fun of doing it. But when I decided to move on to this one, I'm like, okay, I'll get a different schedule down, 1 or 2 a week and work with. But yeah, I guess my criteria is just, if I think it will be just a fun conversation and just explore some different areas. It's kind of like a guy like Brooks Kubik, who is with Dinosaur Training. I mean, he's talking about old time strongman, to go back into that culture. I mean, it's hard to think of what their mindset was at that point, because a lot of those people who were, the evolutionaries, like they were the innovators of they were just hardworking men. I mean, they were just trying to figure shit out. They were just trying to survive every day. Their performance enhancing drug was, a few pints at the end of the day.